Global Impact, Professor Nicholas Pierce. He's Clinical Assistant Professor of Management and Organization at Kellogg. And you are also an assistant pastor at the Apostolic Church of God in Chicago.
Yes.
We really appreciate you coming in.
Oh, my pleasure.
We've been hearing from leaders from around the world. How are you remembering Nelson Mandela today?
Well, as President Obama said, we're really mourning the loss of one of our world's most influential and courageous figures. But at the same time, we also have to remember that he's more than a prolific world leader. President Mandela was a father, was a husband, was a grandfather, and so we're also remembering a great man, a family man, someone who has a family that is mourning his passing as well, just as we are around the world.
Sure.
Speak to his leadership style, because it was so different. I mean, here's a guy who was labeled as a terrorist, #1 terrorist in the 60s, spends almost 30 years in prison, comes out, and somehow, without much bitterness or anything, is able to turn his country around.
Yes, I mean, President Mandela seemed to have an uncommon grace, but never really lose his common touch. And after dealing with almost 3 decades of very, very harsh imprisonment and injustice, he was able to emerge better instead of bitter, which is really a phenomenal feat. There are many of us who deal with those sorts of situations and would come out a whole lot worse than we went in. But he's really a testament to the power of love, to the power of reconciliation, to the power of collaboration. He emerged as a leader who was committed to collaborating instead of dominating.
Right. It seems like forgiveness is one of the key words that we keep hearing over and over again, how he embodies forgiveness, such an important attribute. Also speak to maybe how he transcended age and race. He's not just an inspiration for African Americans and for people who grew up in the 50s and 60s, but people of all ages and races.
That's right. President Mandela's legacy will stand as a model for generations to come. If we can take just one thing from President Mandela's life, it would be forgiveness. It would be if everyone who's listening to us right now would commit to forgiving one person who has done something wrong in their life, or if they would commit to serving someone, making just one decision to do something in service to someone else as opposed to for their own benefit, our world would be much, much better for it.
You know, it's interesting because I think at some level, we all feel, you know, some degree of bitterness. And you have to believe that this guy did too, but somehow it didn't serve his cause. And he knew that. He knew that was integral to doing, you know, achieving what he needed to do in the country.
That's right. Resilience is critical. Bouncing back from difficult circumstances and saying, I'm willing to not fight evil with evil, but to respond to evil with love. It's a message that King taught and embodied. It's a message that in our church we teach that Christ embodied, and it's certainly something that we'll be able to take away from Mandela's life.
Is that a good comparison, comparing him to Dr. Martin Luther King?
Certainly. I think Dr. King did his part to make America the place that we could all be proud of, and I believe Mandela did the same in South Africa. But his legacy, I believe, will go beyond the shores of South Africa, beyond the American continent, and indeed last throughout human history.
Yeah.
Professor Nicholas Pierce, we really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks
My
for coming
pleasure
in.
to be with you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.